We're starting with some more exhibits, and then we'll move into testimony and arguments and in my opinion, weaselly things that the defense tries to pull during this. And there's a big surprise at the end. At least it was a surprise for me. Let's go.
That is the driver's side of the Range Rover. Yes, that is Exhibit 61 is on the front door, and 62 is on the rear door.
And with respect to those exhibits, did you swab them?
Yes, they were field tested, swabbed, and collected in the same manner as the other stains in the garage.
And was that 2 swabs?
2 swabs for the evidentiary collection.
And KM, the result?
KM was positive.
What is that, sir?
That is another blood-like stain found on the Range Rover. Yes, it was field tested, swabbed, and collected.
And the results of the field test?
Field test was positive. Front door of the, left front door of the Range Rover. And you can see the apparent spatter pattern that the stain was collected out of.
Picture 5.
That's a blood-like stain found on the left rear door of the Range Rover. And that was field tested, it was KM positive, and then it was collected with 2 swabs. Picture 6 is the left front corner of the bumper of the Range Rover. State Police Exhibit 60 was a swabbing, or 2 swabbings collected from that stain that the arrow was pointing to. And Exhibit 69 is a sample of the blood-like stain that was found below it. Both items were field tested. They field tested positive. Okay, that stain is on the left rear fender of the Range Rover. It was also field tested positive with the KM test and was collected with 2 swabs in the usual manner. That is a photo of Exhibit 58, which was a sampling of the blood-like stains found on the grill. We were treating this this apparent impression or print and blood-like material that we found on the grill. We photographed this.
So just to be clear, there was not swabbed in this?
I did not swab this.
Okay, and it was not tested or it was tested?
I believe.
Objection. Objection.
That is more blood-like stains on the grill of the Range Rover. Along the side of the car, you can see in this road grime here, salt, dirt, sand. You can kind of see it like a swipe mark through there.
Here comes the cross.
Let me ask you a few questions. Let's start with this presumptive testing that we've talked a lot about here.
Objection. Okay, I just had to do that.
It's my understanding, as you testified, that when we're talking about these chemical presumptive tests, there are at least 2 that you talked about today, right?
Yes.
The first was called Kastle-Meyer, begins with a K instead of a C, right? It's like hyphenated, 2 names.
Yes.
And the second one was something called luminol, right?
Yes.
And Kastle-Meyer, you said, is made up of 2 chemicals. One is phenolphthalein, right?
Yes.
And the other is hydrogen peroxide, right?
Yes.
Now, phenolphthalein is the stuff that they use to test swimming pools for chlorine, right? Isn't that the same stuff?
I don't know, sir.
So you're not an expert in science, you're not a chemist or anything like that, right?
No.
So when you said you had some training in it, you were trained in how to administer it, right?
Yes.
You don't know anything about the chemistry itself and why something shows pink or glows or changes color at all, right?
That's correct.
They almost always give you either a promotion or a demotion or tell you that you don't know anything, just to make you feel comfortable.
And the training, you said you also received from the lab some kind of like a kit in order to administer it, right?
Yes.
And phenolphthalein is a liquid, isn't it?
Yes.
But in any event, you also said that there are things, when you talk about presumptions, right, you're trying to see if there's a place that you're going to do some swabbing or photography, right?
For the Castlemeyer,
Yeah.
it's more, we do our searches visually.
Okay, so you see something that looks like a stain, right? You maybe do a little chemical wipe with the KM, right?
Or conduct a KM test,
You
correct?
do a KM test, and if it comes back negative, do you still take a picture of it?
Sometimes,
So we saw a couple of those. You tested a stain on the floor of the garage, and it didn't even come up with a presumptive test, right?
right.
But in any event, if it comes up presumptive, one of the things you indicated that it's presumptive for is blood, right?
Well, the test, it's presumptive for blood.
That's what I mean. The test is presumptive for blood by putting the two chemicals together with the sample, right?
Yes.
And you did mention a couple of things that it also is presumptive for, right?
Yes.
Animal blood is one,
Yes.
and of course, there's all sorts of animals, right?
Yes.
Doesn't distinguish between one animal or another, does it?
No.
I think you also mentioned horseradish is something that it tests positive for?
That's one of the classical examples.
Okay.
We all know what he's doing here and why he's doing it. Maybe this mom who vanished into thin air sat on the garage floor that day before she disappeared and ate bowls full of horseradish and got them all over the garage. Come on. And in 2 different locations.
Now, are you familiar with some of the other things that it tests positive for?
I'm familiar with turmeric.
Turmeric, right? Now, doesn't it also test positive for tomato?
I don't know.
What about rust, iron rust?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
How about bleach? Do you know about that?
No.
He goes on and on. You get the idea. He hits the jury over the head with the idea.
If we're talking about a presumptive test, if you wanted to be presumptive about the presence of horseradish, this would be the test to use, right?
Horseradish. See? I told you.
You would also agree, would you not, that you would need a confirmatory test done by a lab to see whether the presumption or assumption turned out to be correct, right?
Yes.
And you know that in your, never mind this case, but in your experience, some of the things that you show a positive presumptive test turn out not to be blood at all, correct?
I've never had that experience.
Oops.
You didn't even test all of the spots that we just saw pictures of, did you?
No. He'd still be in the garage.
Let me ask you a few questions about luminol. We saw some pictures in the back of the Suburban, right? Including a couple in the dark where you see this little purple glow, right?
In the dark. Yeah, that's how it works, bud.
Blue glow. Correct, sir.
Blue, purple. Those were kind of like, those photographs were taken with a time-lapse photography, right?
Yes.
So they appeared brighter than they might with the naked eye, correct?
I can't say for sure, sir.
Objection! He's tossing innuendo.
So you know that a car is made out of steel, or most of them are, right?
Yes, it is.
And steel is an iron alloy, is it not?
It is.
So it would stand to reason that in a motor vehicle, there might be some exposed metal places that might test positive using luminol, right?
Correct.
Oh my gosh. What news this must be to the police. There must be a bulletin put out right away. Warn every CSI in the most condescending manner you can.
So if you wanted to see if your car was rusty, you might spray some luminol on it and you would have a positive glowing result, right?
I know a guy who sells forensic supplies. Wonder if I can get a discount on luminol for my car.
And if you're talking about, let's say, a car where there are children that have been passengers in that car, there might be all sorts of other things that will test positive for the presence of iron. Isn't that true?
Possibly, yes.
Child passengers in the cargo area? Look at Riley. He's praying and counting to 10 under his breath.
You know that I think turnips also test positive for luminol, don't they?
I don't know that for a fact.
You know, a lot of root vegetables have iron in them, right? If you wanted to see if you maybe dropped a turnip on the ground in the back seat of the car, you might use luminol and it might glow, right?
Objection.
Ground.
irrelevance, and I assume it's facts, not in evidence.
She actually came up with the grounds. I'd have said, Your Honor, really? Really? And the witness actually answers the question.
I think you'd be able to see a turnip and would need luminol.
But the luminol might illuminate it, right?
He's 8 years old. The witness is being cross-examined by an 8-year-old.
So if a child had, let's say, ice skates in the back of the car, some of that maybe scratched off on the back seat,
Objection.
that would test positive for luminol, wouldn't it?
Well, there's an objection, and it calls for a hypothetical, but the hypothetical isn't developed in such a way as to aid the jury.
The judge didn't even bother asking for grounds. He gave them himself.
A lot of these photographs that we've seen were various angles of the very same spots that you tested, isn't that right?
Yes.
So just by looking at these photographs, you'd have to look very carefully to see whether or not 3, 4, maybe even 5 photographs were of the same location that you did a swab, isn't that right?
No, they have exhibit numbers on them. He's making innuendos again, as if the police are intentionally making it appear as if they have more evidence than they do. Guess what would happen if they did not take photos from different angles? Yep, the defense would jump all over that, asking why not.
No, I just swabbed from the areas that were marked as exhibits.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm talking about the photographs of different angles to a certain extent of the same areas that you had swabbed.
Yes.
I also want to be clear about the measuring tapes that are in many of these pictures. The white tape is in centimeters and millimeters, correct?
And I believe it's inches on one side too.
Well, the yellow, isn't the yellow the inches?
You said the white tape, sir?
Yeah, doesn't the white tape say metric on some of them in those pictures?
I don't know. I would have to look at the pictures.
All right, fair enough. But if you're familiar with the fact that there's a distinction between the metric system, which uses centimeters and millimeters, and the American measuring system that uses inches and feet, right?
Yes.
That was it. He didn't go anywhere with that. He just went on to the next question.
I want to ask you a few questions about the paper towels in the kitchen. You see that image there?
Yes.
And I think you testified that this was the paper towel that you examined. You did some kind of a test on it as well, right?
Yes.
And you seized the whole thing or just a portion of it?
The whole thing, sir.
When you came into the house that day, this would be the 25th, correct?
Yes.
Was this exactly when you went in the location where you found this paper towel roll?
Not the exact location, no.
It was moved around?
It was in that general same corner of the sink, sir.
Did you move it so that somebody could take a better picture?
No, I moved it so I could examine it and field test it.
When this picture was taken and you put that yellow tab next to it, is that the location you found it in before you moved it and examined it?
No, I don't believe so, sir. Not the
Where
same
was
exact-
it when you first observed it, if you can just point it out on this photograph?
I would just remember in that general corner of the sink, sir.
He goes on about this and shows a photo of the paper towel still on the spindle. And the reason he's able to show that photo is because the police took photos before touching anything, illustrating the point of why they do that.
Do you recall that this was the view of that pantry when you looked at it?
Yes, that's consistent.
Did you
with-
take any swabs or collect any evidence from what's shown in that image?
I did not.
Right. Did you ever see the paper towel roll on the dispenser that when you were at the house?
I think he's either implying or is at some point going to come out and allege that the police compromised the scene. This is the suggestion that is subtly being made over and over and over.
Do you recall seeing any of the items that are indicated here during your your investigation on May 25th, 2019, inside the home?
Specific items?
Any specific items in the pantry that we're seeing here?
No.
Does this particular roll, did you observe this roll of paper towel in the pantry at Wells Lane when you were there collecting evidence?
I don't remember that.
Ooh. Wait a minute. Let's look at the photo of the pantry shown a minute ago. Now this picture. At first I thought maybe it was the same room taken from different angles, but I'm thinking no. I don't like how this has been presented. I've put another video up of these two pictures asking for people's opinion. So I'm not going to get into all the reasons why I think these are two different rooms. The defense is supposed to challenge everything. I get that. But this is not that. This is dirty tricks, in my opinion. The defense goes after this one again. Look at the expression here. Remember when he was praying and counting to 10? Yeah, well, we're only human. Then the defense goes after this one. This is clearly debris on the marker. It doesn't mean anything except that they're working in a dirty garage. And the fact that the witness doesn't remember whether or not that bit of debris was there at that particular moment is not the gotcha the defense wants it to be. The detective isn't there to examine the markers. The defense does a similar thing in respect to the Suburban. I'm skipping ahead because it was all innuendo and red herrings. The next clip is the redirect. You know that feeling when something's funny, but you know you're not allowed to laugh? Like if you're in court? Kudos to the prosecution here for doing this without laughing or sarcasm.
Do you recall Attorney Shohorn asking you about the other items that a presumptive test could test positive for? Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes.
Okay. I think some of the things he questioned were about radishes. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. In the garage floor, did you find any evidence of radishes anywhere?
No.
Okay. What about cheeseburgers anywhere on the floor?
No cheeseburgers,
What
ma'am.
about on the undercarriage of the Chevy Suburban? Did you find any cheeseburgers or radishes there?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What about the undercarriage of the Land Rover? Any cheeseburgers or radishes there?
No.
What about turmeric? Any bottles of turmeric or turmeric sources on the floor of the garage?
No, ma'am.
The Land Rover?
No.
The Chevy Suburban?
No.
All right. With respect to the cargo area of the Chevy Suburban, did you find any evidence of car seats? Any evidence that children were sitting in the trunk area?
In the back? No, ma'am.
With respect to that cargo area, did you see a lot of exposed steel and rust areas?
No.
Just a couple of questions. In any of those areas, starting with the garage,
The defense went on about rust stains and then they went for lunch. After lunch, we hear that the defense wants the DNA evidence excluded.
And then there's a motion that deals specifically with the next witness, which was filed by the defense last week, which was specifically to exclude any and all evidence of so-called marital discord between Mr. Fotis Dulos and Miss Jennifer Dulos.
The spouse is always the first suspect. Evidence of marital discord is probative and relevant. The defense wants prior bad acts excluded. There's a discussion about what should and shouldn't be included or excluded and why. In the next clip, the prosecution reveals something that may not be a surprise to those of you who've been following this closely, but I knew nothing about this before this trial started, so this surprised me.
The defense in this case, as I understand it, from some of the cross-examination which we have heard so far, specifically with respect to presumptive blood tests, as I understand the defense, they are not conceding that there was actually blood in the garage. They're not conceding that Jennifer Dulos is deceased, and they're not conceding that Fotis Dulos is responsible for her murder.
I know I said earlier that such a position would be ludicrous. I'm not going to edit that out. I still think it's ludicrous. This is going to make the trial longer and much more complicated than necessary. Next up was the nanny. I'm going to fold that into the next video to keep their testimony together. That's it for day 3. Stay safe. I'll see you in the comments.